My name is Ryan Schmidt. I'm the district manager for Denver, PCL, and we're here to have a conversation leading up to Pride Month.
I'm Matthew Mikulas. I work over in Denver District Base Building Estimating team, as well as Estimator Level 2. I'm represented in the LGBT community with the G. And we're just here to discuss some things that are going on with Pride Month, as well as some of our thoughts from our upper management to our everyday.
Well, no, and so this is, you're new to PCL. And so over the last 2 years, I guess, 2+ years, PCL has made a more intentional effort in the the E&I community. And so some people have heard this story of mine. You haven't, but for me, I come from a pretty non-diverse and local space, not necessarily as it relates to the Pride Month specifically, but just in general. And so part of my journey in 25 years of PCL, opinions have changed in 25 years. I've moved twice, increasingly to diverse communities, which has been good for my own development as well. So I don't have a lot of answers when it comes to this stuff. I certainly have a willingness to participate and increase that participation and really engage in meaningful conversations and then actions going forward, which can be baby steps, big steps, whatever that wants to be. But for me, I don't have a lot of direction. It's more about listening to people's stories and then applying how PCL can take those stories and increase awareness and inclusivity and all those types of things.
Just to show some similarities, I grew up in Northern California in a small farm town. So there was
farmer as well.
Yes, farmer. So there was not there was, I think we had a very non-mixed graduating class, and
right.
It was just kind of what you kind of thought. And then as I went off to college, I saw that there were more different types of people and there were different types of experiences through the world, and it did help the diversity. And I'm glad to see that at this company, they really do strive for it. You guys are making the right moves. And I mean, again, baby steps, or maybe sometimes they're long strides, but it is good and refreshing to see a company actually try.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things for me with Pride Month is it's always beneficial to support any type of those, awareness campaigns or showing that support. To me, it means more when you have people that are actually in that community.
100%.
And as far as I know, and I'm just being honest, I think you're the first
openly loud and proud. Yes, I realized a long time ago that sitting quietly is effective, of course, and knowing when to talk. But when you are speaking for a community, you have to be loud. That's part of what Pride was. A lot of people don't understand that it was actually a riot. It was multiple riots throughout there was the Stonewall and all of them. They were by drag queens and transvestites or transsexuals. And they rioted because they were being mistreated. And a lot of people don't understand, having a voice in the community is a big deal. And having PCL be able to provide that is a big deal.
Right. And to me, participation in these types of initiatives mean more when you're supporting people
100%
that are actually in our community, in those communities, right? And so I probably should have been more vocal about participation in these types of events in the past, and I'll own that. It's exciting to be able to have someone leverage into these types of events with their own stories to show support for our own employees that are part of those communities.
Well, and it's like I always say, it went from, I've seen the studies where in the 1960s it was 3% of the population, 1970s was 9, it's growing, and now you can ask almost anyone in office, oh, do you know someone who's part of this community? And they're like, oh, my cousin or my brother or my roommate or my friend or my parents. Sometimes you're like, wow, okay, that's incredible. And it's something that as much as we are all different, we all come from the same place and have the same kind of communities that we just need to learn and build upon.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's I always tell people oh, everyone needs a gay best friend in their life. That just makes things a little bit better. You always got to have that person in your corner who's I got you. Don't worry. We know where the bodies are buried. We're good. Let's go. Keep moving. And that's part of what I think is good for this company to see, is that there are different walks of life throughout the whole time, but they're all kind of coming to the same place and trying to build the same community like we are.
And just be, all of us can be better people the more that we understand our coworkers and the communities around
100%.
us. Right? That's good. So do you feel comfortable telling your coming out story?
Yeah. So honestly, for me, my journey kind of started in college. Of course, I had a little bit of an exploration, and then proceeded to still have relationships with women and stuff like that. And then I just had graduated and got my computer science degree, and I called my mom and I said, "Hey mom, I think I'm gay." And then I hung up. Mind you, I'm in a 7-Eleven. She calls me again, and again, of course, just based on phone communication, thankfully it's been better. She goes, "What do you mean you're stuck in hay?" And I said, "No, mom, I'm gay." And she goes, "Oh." And then she hung up. And then I called her back, and she just was like, "Well, I love you either way." Didn't take a minute. And honestly, my mom and me relationship was a little bit rough for a little bit, just because it's hard for the older generation, especially, to come to terms with, the whole LGBTQ spectrum. But now she's super supportive. I have a great family. We are actually using me and my husband are using the adoption assistance program here at PCL. And they've helped us already a little bit, especially with all of our home study fees. And I can't be more appreciative of that, especially seeing the support that is provided here, even though they may have not had representation.
Well, great story. What inspired you in that moment to call up for 7-Eleven?
Honestly, I was sitting there, and there was it sounds super funny, but there was mystery flavored Airheads. And I was just like, I think I like guys more than I like girls. And that puts me kind of on a weird part of the spectrum as well, but I mostly identify as gay. And so I just was like, you know what, I have to say it. I need to just get it out of the way and accept it. It took me about a year and a half of accepting it on my own, just from social norms and everything going on, politically, if not globally. And before I came out, I was 23, and we were still, same-sex marriages weren't allowed. It was still kind of taboo. Not necessarily, there was more of it out there, but it wasn't quite as open as it was now. Mm-hmm. And that was only 9 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you think that upper management can do to provide a more inclusive and open community amongst PCL?
Well, I think we've started, and again, going back to just D&I in general, but it starts with education and awareness, mm-hmm. and that's fine for a while. And I think that from my perspective, that's what kind of 2020 was all about, across all of the initiatives that we have under that kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion spectrum. But to me now, it's got to be more actionable, and awareness and education all gets you so far. And so I think active participation in things, like pride events and just increasing and encouraging participation in those events, listening to your story and others, I think is a big deal. And I think that if there are any kind of, anti-sentiment, activities out there, or a little comment here or there, and addressing those, in real time. We went through unconscious bias training mm-hmm. a year or two ago, which again is a nice start, but are we applying those? I mean, are there little microaggressions or things that are continuing to happen that maybe aren't as overt as what was acceptable in the past? Not acceptable, but things that went
just unnoticed,
or just unnoticed or whatever, that I think we have to get all of that type of stuff out of our work environment, to just make sure that whether it's being gay or being a minority or whatever the case might be, that's not acceptable here, right? And when you see senior management addressing that, then I think it kind of touches everybody in that sense.
Well, and honestly, I've seen, being part of the construction community, LGBTQ is a huge denominator in that function. But just the baseline of being in the office, I'm not sure how the field is, but they have been very accepting, very open. Of course, you hear things, you see things, but a lot of times it's just knowledge and just having that experience that people need.
Yeah.
And I can tell that, like, with PCL and how it's growing, that's what you guys are aiming for, especially now that the world's opening back up and we can be part of stuff and have booths.
What do you need from allies at PCL?
If you have any questions and any thoughts or things that you want to hear more about in the community, to talk to your upper management, to talk to your team members, because sitting there and thinking something and then wanting it but never telling anyone isn't helping anyone. Majority of our upper senior managers are all open, if not willing to go the extra mile with you. They just, again, like we have here with Ryan, he just doesn't have that background. If I told him, hey, there's these events, I guarantee you, if I provided good site work and was a good discussion, he'd be like, cool, let's do them. And that's what we need more in our community, as well as our work community, is just everyone has a voice. Don't be afraid to voice it.
Well, I'm excited that you feel, that the company is taking on, this initiative in a meaningful way. I loved how you decorated your cube for the diversity.
I come to win.
That's how I found out, by the way.
Yes.
I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know. And so that was, and obviously there was an enormous amount of pride. I think you won one of the awards, regardless if you won something or not.
Oh, I definitely won.
It was a great display of pride, but education as well, right? There were things that you were sharing, in terms of what that meant to you, which is a big deal. And I think that, again, just people seeing that, it was a very colorful display, as they typically are.
Hey, we stole the rainbow for a reason, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it was just well done. And again, I think it got a lot of people's attention in a good way. It was just before Pride Month as well.
Hey,
so
I was like, gotta hit the target.
You're part marketing person as well.
Exactly.
So
you gotta market, you gotta sell, you gotta make sure that everything keeps moving forward, streamlined.
No, it's exciting, like I said, that we can support not just the initiative and Pride Month at large, but that we're actually supporting an employee now as well. Which
exactly.
To me it just means more to me. It's not a reason why we haven't been involved in a more meaningful way to date, but I think the fact that we're supporting you is a big deal for me, anyways, for sure, and it will be a big catalyst for our continued involvement in this, for sure.
Exactly. I always say you need someone to run with the flag so you know where you're heading.
Yeah.
And honestly, with just the support of being here for 2 months, not even, I think like a month and a half, just seeing the programs I was able to put into place just shows that your guys' openness and willingness are there.
Right.
And just need the little bit of direction.
Yeah. No, that's well said. Thanks for that.
Awesome.
Cut.